Welcome, everyone, to our second breakout session, Silencing Your Inner Critic. I'm Lauren Walker, and I'm a senior staff writer here at GovLoop. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Imposter syndrome and self-doubt are more pervasive than you might think. Nearly 70% of working professionals report feeling inadequate at work at some point in their careers. So it's not just you, it's not just me. This session will help you overcome your inner critic as you learn how to recognize self-doubt, reframe your mindset, and build confidence in your role. But first, we have a few reminders that you've probably memorized if you've been here all day. We've got some additional resources for you that you can find by tapping the resources icon at the bottom of your screen. That will include a copy of the slides from this presentation and some other useful links. Be sure to check them all out. If you want to use closed captioning, tap the Show Captions icon, also at the bottom of your screen. We hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, don't despair. You can use the Q&A icon to send us a message, and my colleague Caitlin will get your questions sorted out. You can use that same Q&A portal to ask our expert questions, and you don't have to save them for the end. Just drop them in whenever. We may answer them as we go along. The Q&A questions are only seen by the speaker and the hosts, but there's also an open chat available if you want to share your thoughts and questions with the other folks attending the session. Those conversations with your peers in the chat can really add to everyone's experience, so don't be shy. Let us know what you're thinking. And if you miss anything, don't worry. Tomorrow, we'll email you a link to the entire event. That will come directly to your inbox, and you can review a recording of this session as well as of any that you might have missed. Also, we're giving out 1 CPE credit for your participation in today's session. To get that credit, you need to do 3 things. 1, stay and participate for the whole entire session. 2, take all the polls. And 3, fill out the post-event CPE evaluation to obtain your credit. The polls will appear on your screen as a pop-out. Just select your response and click Submit to record your answer. And you can find the CPE evaluation in that Resource tab on your screen or at the Resource Center in the main lobby environment. All CPEs will be emailed directly to you once we confirm that you've met all the requirements. Okay, with all that out of the way, I'm delighted to introduce you to our expert. Today, we're lucky to have Carolyn Mooney, strategist at Enough LLC. Welcome, Carolyn. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for attending this presentation. I really appreciate it. Out of all the presentations that are available to you, that you chose this one. So I just want to let you know that we may be touching on some uncomfortable topics and uncomfortable space in our time together. But don't worry, by the end, we're going to have you have some answers, hopefully, to some of the questions that you may have. And as Lauren mentioned, please feel free to ask them along the way. I want to make sure you get the most out of this presentation and not just hearing me talk. So if you have questions, put them out there and Lauren will stop me and tell me, hey, we have a question. And also, the more importantly, is that we're going to have some tools for you to utilize when it comes to silencing your inner critic. So let's get started. Before we dive into silencing your inner critic, we have to understand what it is, why it exists, and where it comes from. Once we have a grasp on that, we can begin to work on silencing it. But not to provide a spoiler alert here, but it's rare that your inner critic will ever be truly silenced. So sorry, wah, wah, wah. But it's very rare that it's ever going to be silenced completely. But today's presentation is about understanding, awareness, and curiosity. So how do we go about getting that understanding? This is a brief overview here on the slide of what we're going to be covering in our presentation. We're going to talk about being aware of your inner critic. Where does it come from? Why does it even exist? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And when does it show up? That's really important for you to know. And then next, we're going to talk about how to respond to your inner critic, coming at it from a place of compassion instead of harshness and judgment. And finally, making a conscious choice to listen or not to listen to your inner critic and what it has to say and how that impacts your actions and emotions. Okay. So let's talk about your inner voice. So what does it sound like? The inner critic often utilizes really harsh language. things like you're not enough or you're a failure. It may also use language that may make you think it's keeping you safe or protecting you from disappointment or failure. But it puts it out there that it's supporting you, right? I'm here to help you out. But that gets drilled in deeper into your brain through comparison. By comparing yourself to others, you begin to feel inadequate and you don't feel that you're where you should be. You begin to feel that you may even like forget where you've come from, in the sense of like you don't think that you've really accomplished anything, or that you lose focus on what you've accomplished. And instead you start comparing yourself to others in their journey and focusing on their journey. And then the language of your inner critic turns to absolutes, like always and never, making it feel like you will never be able to change, that you're always going to be doomed to feel less than. So what does your inner critic say to you? If you feel comfortable, feel free to put that in the chat. If not, we'll keep moving forward. But just think about that, of what is it that your inner critic is saying? It's that negative voice in your mind that you hear in your head that says, yes, that I'm still not enough. It's amazing with all of the things that we go through, and you'll never accomplish what you hope to. Hopefully that you see, when people are putting this information in the chat, the number one thing is to notice that you are not alone. You are not alone, that everyone has this inner critic, and this inner critic is very harsh. So as we go through the presentation, that we're going to talk about tools and tricks that are going to help you with that, right? Ways that we can combat that thought process. So now that we know what the inner critic sounds like, yeah, are you sure? That's doubt. Are you sure that's even going to work out? Are you positive? Okay. So thank you. Keep on sharing that. So now that we know what the inner critic sounds like, let's notice when it shows up. This is really important. Noticing when it chooses to show itself will help you identify the why behind it. I will list out a few places where and when the inner critic usually shows up and let you know what that voice sounds like. And feel free to let me know, like, oh, that's where mine is. That's where it's happening for me. When you're about to be judged. This is any situation where you feel that you're going to be evaluated. This could be speaking in public, speaking in a meeting, posting online, or even going out on a date. Your typical inner voice is telling you, don't mess this up. They're going to think you're incompetent. They're not going to like you. They're not going to like who you are. They're going to think you're weird, right? I get that a lot, that I think people think I'm weird, but it's okay. I've learned to enjoy it. Another time when your inner critic may come up is when you're trying something new and unfamiliar. So newness equals uncertainty, and your brain flags that as risk. And so this could be starting a new job, learning a new skill, or even entering a new social circle. Your inner critic voice says, you don't know what you're doing. Like, don't do that, right? Again, they may think you're weird. Another time it may show up is after you make a mistake. This is one of the favorite entry points of your inner critic. You're going to say something awkward. You miss a deadline. You get negative feedback. I know someone here listed, thank you, Denise, for saying we're all weird to somebody. That's right. We're all weird, and it's okay. I like me. You get to a point and you're just like, I like my weirdness. But after you make a mistake and you get negative feedback, and somebody on here mentioned performance appraisals. All right. Like, sometimes when you get your feedback from your performance appraisals, your inner critic may say, of course you messed that up. You always do. So look for those words like always and never. Another time when it may show up is when you compare yourself to others. We talked about this, but comparison fuels it instantly. Your social media scrolling, you're seeing someone more successful, more confident, more attractive. And your inner critic is like, you're behind. You're never going to reach your potential. You're not as good as the rest of them. It can show up when something really matters to you. The more you care about something, the louder that inner critic gets. That could be for career decisions, relationships, or personal goals. The voice, your inner critic, is saying, this is important. Don't risk failing at it. This just means too much. It can also show up when you're tired or stressed out or overwhelmed. The mental defenses are lower when you're in a place of burnout or late at night or under pressure, and you may get that thought of everything is falling apart. I'm sure I'm not the only one when you wake up in the middle of the night, it's sometimes like panicked, like, oh my gosh, you're thinking about something, and all of a sudden it feels so big and so heavy. And you're thinking, I don't know how I'm going to finish this project or talk to this person or do whatever it is that you have to do. But then when you wake up in the morning, if you're lucky enough to go back to sleep, when you wake up in the morning, it doesn't seem as big. And that's because when you're in a time of exhaustion, burnout, you're tired, that inner critic, your defenses against your inner critic are not there. And it can just get in there and just start telling you all of the awful things that it's trying to do to help you, but it's not, right? And then when you're about to grow, this is a subtle one, but right before expansion, this could be taking on a bigger role. This could be setting boundaries or putting yourself out there. Your inner voice may say, your inner critic may say, stay here where you're safe, right? It's trying to stop you from stepping forward. The pattern underneath all of these, if you haven't picked it up, is that the inner critic tends to show up when there's uncertainty, right? When you don't know what the outcome is, when there's visibility where others might judge you or see you, and emotional risk, meaning that there's failure, rejection, or embarrassment are on the table, right? So it's basically a risk detection system. But sadly, it's one that overestimates danger and underestimates you and your ability to get through it. So we have, I thought we had a poll question, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's
I
not after
thought
this
we
one.
did too. I can put the poll up, but I thought we
Yeah,
had the slide.
yeah,
Let's
I
do
can,
the
I
poll.
can, I can talk about the poll question. Yeah, I don't know why it's not up there. Sorry about that.
Here we go. Poll one, launch.
So how often do you notice your inner critic? Like now that I'm pointing out what it sounds like, what it's saying to you, kind of the language it uses, how often do you think you actually notice your inner critic?
Okay, and we'll give people about a minute to answer this.
Okay.
There was a question in the Q&A that I thought was important, which is, what if your inner critic is right? The
Is it?
person said they were told that everyone had to be in their position for 3 to 5 years and nobody would be promoted before that, but somebody else was. And
So your
I
inner
guess,
critic isn't right, right? We're going to talk about this, about questioning what your inner critic is actually telling you. There's a woman by the name of Byron Katie who she has these 4 questions, which I'm going to bring up, but these 4 questions that she asks her inner critic. And it's, do I know it to be true? Do I absolutely know it to be true? How do I feel knowing that to be true? And who would I be if that wasn't true?
oh,
And
that's
that's
cool.
like and it's looking around you and saying, like, what facts and information do you have around you to either support or contradict what it is? Okay.
Here we have our
So,
results.
so sometimes, often, and constantly. So it seems like a good mix of all of that. So we all are aware that it's there, right? All of us recognize we have this inner critic. Some of us almost, now just the fact that you recognize it, that's great. Because now soon we're going to talk about, understanding why it exists, the damage that it does to you, and then how do we change that? How do we change the conversation with ourselves over this inner critic? Um, so I'm looking forward to that. All right. So now that we know what it sounds like and when it appears, let's explore why this inner critic exists. The 4 main reasons the why they exist are here on the slide. So we have survival and self-protection. Your brain is wired to anticipate threats. The inner critic is an internal warning system. It's don't say that, you're going to embarrass yourself. You're not ready, you're going to fail. From an evolutionary standpoint, avoiding rejection and failure can mean staying safe and being part of the group. So the critic inside tries to keep you safe from taking risk, especially if that risk means exclusion. We're social creatures. We need to be part of the group. We need to be part of the herd. And if we try to do something that's going to push us out, that's dangerous. So our brain's like, no, 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 we got this. We're going to save you. But in the future, just a little sneak peek in the next couple slides, we're going to tell that critic, thank you, but no thank you. Okay. So the number 2, the internalized voices comes from others. The voice inside your head, that's your inner critic, is not coming from you. I'm going to say that again. It's not coming from you. It has come from parents, from caregivers, from teachers, from cultural and social expectations, whether that be social media, magazines, news, whatever. Trauma. Exactly. Thank you, Denise. Trauma. It's coming from something else and it's not you. Let's just think back for a moment. What benefit, besides safety, what benefit does it serve you to have your brain tell you that you are not worth anything? There's no benefit to that. So it's not coming from you. It's coming from all of this outside stimulus and how you process through that stimulus and internalize it. And so that's why the why of understanding how this gets here is so important. Over time, those external judgments become internal. What once was someone correcting you becomes you correcting yourself. And that's what makes it hard about silencing your inner critic, is that it masks itself in your own voice. The voice that you should be trusting, it's masking itself with that. A third understanding of why your inner critic shows up is desire to control and for improvement. The critic pushes you towards something. It's trying to push you forward. It's putting higher standards, better performance, self-discipline. In balanced form, this is helpful. This is useful. It helps you grow. But when it gets too harsh and too constant, it stops being constructive and becomes discouraging. This is perfectionism. So many people deal with this idea of like, I have to be perfect, I have to be perfect. No one is perfect, and we need to stop trying to obtain it. Perfectionism is not a goal, it's a prison. So the sooner you realize that, the sooner you're going to start pushing away this idea that you have to be perfect. Fear of rejection and shame. Humans are deeply social, as I mentioned before. The worst thing you can do for us is exclude us. So the inner critic often tries to preempt that. And it tries to say, like, oh my gosh, you're going to embarrass yourself, criticism from others, feeling like you don't belong. And it criticizes you before the others can criticize you. So it's there again as a protection. So let's talk about the price of your inner critic. Next slide. I can't seem to push it forward. Okay. So the price of your inner critic. What is this costing you? Do you feel like it's harming you? Do you feel like it's helping you? So let's talk about the negative impact. Chronic stress and anxiety. Your inner voice is constantly judging you. It is always on edge. Overthinking decisions, the way this looks is like overthinking decisions, replaying conversations, anticipating mistakes. Your nervous system rarely gets to relax because it always feels like you're being evaluated, even when you're by yourself. Paralysis and missed opportunities. Somebody mentioned on here job opportunities. A loud inner critic can often lead to not starting things because it feels that you're not ready, not finishing things because you're not good enough to finish it, or avoiding risks like you're going to fail anyway, right? These are the things that your mind is telling you. Over time, that creates a quiet pattern of mischances. Careers not pursued, ideas not shared, and relationships not explored. Perfectionism. Again, this is the price. Perfectionism that backfires. The critic says to you, be perfect. But in reality, you become slow to act, more afraid of feedback, and less creative. Perfectionism doesn't produce excellence. It produces avoidance and burnout. Then there's low self-worth. Some of you have mentioned this in here. You mentioned, if your dominant voice in your head is really harsh, you start to believe it. I'm not good enough. I'm behind. I'm never going to achieve what I thought I was going to achieve or what other people expected me to achieve. When you keep hearing that and listening to it, it becomes the baseline of your identity and no longer a passing thought. It strains relationships. The inner critic doesn't just stay inside. It goes outwards. It may be that you're overly defensive. You may be people pleasing. You may struggle to accept praise. You may even project criticism on others. If you can block genuine, it can block genuine connection because you're too busy managing judgment from yourself and others. Right? We're too busy trying to be perfect and trying to put a good face forward. We're missing that connection that we so desperately need. This is why we're so hungry as a society for connection. Connection is made in the scars and the bruises and the blemishes. It's not made in perfection. Emotional exhaustion. I'm sure if I reach out a poll question for this, how many of you feel emotionally exhausted? I'm sure a lot of you would say, that's me, emotionally exhausted. Being constantly monitored by your own mind is exhausting. It can lead to burnout, loss of motivation, and feeling stuck or numb. A smaller life, one that is way smaller than what you're capable of. In my opinion, this is the biggest cost. When your inner critic is in charge, your decisions are shaped by fear over curiosity, safety over growth, and avoidance over possibility. You don't just suffer, you shrink, and your world becomes extremely narrow. There should be a poll question here, I think, as well. I love all of the comments. Okay, what cost do you feel the most that we just talked about? Is it the stress, the constant anxiety that you're feeling, and depression, which can lead to that? They often go together. The missed opportunities, not putting in for that job promotion, or even missed opportunities in the sense of like asking somebody out on a date, or even, we don't have to even go romantic. I mean, people don't talk about the anxiety of asking somebody to be your friend, right? Like think about it on the playground when you're just like, oh, cool shirt. You want to be friends? I like fruit roll-ups. And then you're friends, right? But now as adults, it's, hey, do you want to go grab coffee? Maybe, possibly, right? It's that we missed that opportunity because as some of you mentioned on here, in your chat of feeling like nobody likes you. You're not worthy of friendship or of love or of those types of feelings and emotions. We have perfectionism, of course, we talked about, and low self-worth, strained relationships and that's with self and others. This not just outward, but the strained relationship with yourself. The one person you truly need to love and respect and take care of is yourself. And sometimes that's the most difficult relationship we have. And then feeling burnout in a small life.
Okay, I'm gonna show the results.
I'm excited to see the results. Stress. Okay. Missed opportunities, strained relations. Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for answering that.
I noticed someone said, is there a way to select more than one?
Yeah.
That
They all kind of
resonated.
go together. You're like, I feel all of them. Where is like G, all of the above? Yeah. You're busy encouraging others, yet you feel like you're drowning. You cannot pour into the cup of others when yours is empty. You have to take care of yourself. There's a movie called Captain Fantastic. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but one of the mentions the father. I mean, it's kind of a bizarre movie, but the father takes care of a bunch of his children, and he says, "Nobody is coming to save you." And I think that to myself often of like nobody, not that nobody's going to come save me, but in the sense of that nobody's going to care for me the way that I need to care for myself. It's nobody else's responsibility to take care of me and to make sure that I have the mental, physical, emotional health that I have besides me. Oh, interesting. I find myself encouraging others, but then making myself smaller. Yeah. I wish this was like a whole group discussion because I could talk about this all day of a lot of times that's the people pleasing. We care so much about what others think and we think that that is validating of us and that's making us feel better, but in turn we don't realize that we're making ourselves smaller to make other people feel bigger. And what's great about there's so much space out there that we can both, I can be big and so can you. I can flourish and so can you. It's not like we're in this flower pot where if one of us grows, the other one will have to diminish. And I think that that's something that we're not taught. We have the ability to really build one another and again, build yourself and the right people will show up. Okay, silencing your inner critic. Now we're into the process. How do we tell this inner critic to shut up? It's a good question. Okay. So we're going to label it instead of becoming it. What I mean by this is instead of, I think somebody mentioned this in one of the chats, it's a reframing, if you will, of the statement. So instead of saying something like, I'm terrible at this, label it of like, okay, I see where my brain is going with this. But also let's look at it from a different perspective and say, I'm also new at this and I'm still learning. Yes, I'm new, but I just started. Thank you, Abby. Like I just started doing this. I don't know if you're just saying you just started doing this doesn't mean like this specific activity, but it's also a great thing to this of like if you're new at something, remember your inner critic comes out when it is in times of uncertainty. You're new at something, you're expanding at something, you're trying to choose something new. What Abby said is kind of twofold. Yes, she's just started doing this, but also just remember, you just started doing this. You're allowed to make mistakes. Externalize the voice. Give your inner critic an identity. Mine, I call her Barbie. Not like the doll, but Barbie. I knew through much contemplation, this is like therapy for me, guys. So, like, my mother was a big proponent or big contributor, I should say, to some of my inner critic. The voice that I hear is hers, but it sounded like mine for a long time. And so, my mom's name, her name is Barbara. I never called her Barbara. I always called her mom. The woman kind of scared me a little bit, but Barbie is a name I would never call her to her face. I knew better. If I wanted to live, I was never going to call her Barbie. But when I hear that critic, I hear it in my mother's voice, and it makes it easier for me to separate it. Say, that's not me saying that. That's Barbie. And I'll say, Barbie, thank you for your input, but it's not really helpful right now. And I'm not going to listen to it. Right? Thanks for your input. Thank you for speaking up. Don't need it though. So thanks. Done. And the reason that this works is because what you're trying to do is take your voice out of it and give it a voice that is different than yours. So when you hear it, you recognize it as being the inner critic. It is really what is hard when it's in your own voice is you don't know, you cannot differentiate between the inner critic and really yourself trying to keep yourself safe. Right? So it's like you can't distinguish the two. So it's important that you have a system in place to be able to distinguish that voice from somebody else. It's not you. It can be somebody fake. It can be a TV character that you just thought was a horrible human being. Name it that person, right? Or somebody from a book that you've read, or whatever. Just pick a person. It doesn't have to be real. It could be just, a drill sergeant that or a teacher. Yeah, listen, Linda. It's exactly right. Listen, Linda, I don't need your help. I got this figured out. I'm a big girl. Thank you, Linda. Right? Interrogate it like you're a lawyer and be curious, but do it with conviction. What is the actual evidence that you have that this thought is true? You're a failure. Okay. If that's what you think, you're a failure. What evidence do you have to support that? Is there anything that you are possibly overlooking that could contradict that thought? What would a friend say about it? And often, what would you say to a friend who came to you with that same thought? You going to tell your friend that they're worthless? No. We often are so much more harsh to ourselves than we are to other people. So think about that. Think about like nobody is going to love you the way that you need to be loved. You have to love yourself. You have to respect yourself. And it starts with how you talk to yourself. Not only talk to yourself, but about yourself. So think about that. And this is where I wanted to bring up Byron Katie. She's a woman who struggled with her inner critic for decades. And then it kind of came to her of like, okay, so I have all these thoughts about myself that I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of this. I'm not worthy of that. Okay. Is it true? So question number 1, is it true? Question number 2, is it absolutely true? Do I know this for a fact to be true? Number 3, how do I react when I believe that thought? And number 4, who would I be without that thought? So whatever your inner critic is saying, ask yourself those 4 questions. Do I know this to be true? Maybe. Do I know it to be absolutely 100% true that I'm not enough? That I'm not smart enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'm not whatever enough? How do I feel when that thought is true, when I believe it to be true? I feel like that is, oh, I'm sorry, is it off? No, it's on. I think the slides are on, right? We're on the silencing of inner critic. No, we're still good with the silencing. This is where I'm talking about interrogate. So the third bullet of interrogate. And who would you be if you didn't have that thought? I would feel a lot freer if I didn't have that thought that I wasn't enough. Okay, it's a thought. You get to choose how you listen to that thought. Replace harshness with usefulness. This is not fake positivity. Your brain isn't stupid, neither are you. And it knows what you believe and what you don't. So don't lie to yourself. A lot of times affirmations don't work. And the reason affirmations don't work is because we're telling ourselves things that we don't actually believe are true. Like, I'm awesome. Yeah, you can keep telling yourself you're awesome all day, every day. But if you don't believe it, it's not going to help, right? Affirmations make me feel stupid. You know why? Because they're things you don't believe. So really have this inner discussion with yourself and say, instead of saying like, oh my gosh, I'm amazing, be like, I'm still learning. I'm being curious. I'm new here. I'm just trying to figure things out. I think it's also important to know your intention. I'm approaching this with good intention. I am approaching this with as a learner or as an observer or as I'm somebody who wants to make connection. Talk to yourself, not your inner critic. Talk to yourself through this process like the 6-year-old you. No, 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 I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, and gosh darn it, people like me, Alicia. um, but yeah, but if that's what it takes and you believe it, then yes. But I think that that's why a lot of times affirmations don't necessarily work, is because we're telling ourselves things we don't believe. Right? We're letting it actually makes us feel worse because we're telling ourselves we're this and we know that we're not. And then we feel like we're letting ourselves down with our own affirmations, if that makes sense. So talk to yourself with the kindness and compassion as if you were talking to 6-year-old you. Would you tell your 6-year-old you that you are not worthy of love, that you are not worthy of achievement, that you are a failure, that you are not enough? Would you tell that to your 6-year-old self? And the reason you have grace with your 6-year-old self is because they're learning. They're new to this world. They're learning and they're growing. And they're coming into life trying to discover who they are. And you are doing the same thing. There is no age limit or set for when you're supposed to have this all figured out. I usually think it's probably when you're dead. Then if not, it's too late by that point. But most of what makes life so interesting is the continuous journey of learning, learning about people, learning about yourself, learning about the world that we're in. So give yourself some grace. Set limits on rumination. Look, I'm going to be pouty about this for about 10 minutes and then I'm moving on. I'm going to write my thoughts down instead of recycling them mentally. What happens is when you have structure, and like I'm just going to pout about this for 10 minutes, your inner critic doesn't like structure. It loves chaos. It loves causing chaos. It loves living in chaos. When you create structure, I'm going to do this. Yeah, especially at 10 or 11 p.m. Like, hey, I'm going to do this and then I'm done. Right? Just you have to stomp your feet, whatever, cry, get it out and be like, okay, I'm done, moving on. And then act before you're ready. This is about your inner critic gets quiet once you start moving forward. Your inner critic loves to chat before you hit action. But once you start moving forward, it's like, well, I guess she's got this. See what happens. Right? So send the message, reach out to someone, start the project. Just do it. Speak up, get real life feedback. And what you realize from real life feedback, it's just way less harsh than your critic was telling you it was going to be. Build a counter voice deliberately. I do this. This is what I call like a brag bank. When I am feeling or hearing my inner critic, I think about all of the nice things that my friends have said about me or that a coworker has said about me, depending on the situation. A coworker has said about me or a supervisor has said about me. And it's like, no, I belong here. I deserve to be here. I have the right to be here, and I'm doing the things that I'm really good at. And I'm learning new stuff, and I'm going to learn, I'm going to fail along the way, but I'm doing it. So think about things and even ask your friends. Your friends will tell you what they think about you. Those, I love you. You're smart and you're talented and you are so compassionate. Write that down. Put that in your brag bank. So anytime that you feel like this inner critic is too loud, a happy file. Emma's got a happy file at work. Yes. Right? This is your letters of like your accolades, your letters of praise. You have a positive performance appraisal. Pull that out. Have a place that you can go that is a place that is safe and gives you the kind of the cheerleading that you may need at that time. Notice the patterns. When you notice the patterns where it shows up, like we talked about a couple slides ago, where it shows up, then you'll be prepared for it and you won't be blindsided. And then you can preempt it before it happens. Oh, I know that I always kind of go into a spiral before I'm about to give a presentation. Okay, let me set XYZ in place. Or I know that I'm about to go into a meeting with this person and it's going to be uncomfortable. My feelings of inadequacy are going to come up because I'm not really a numbers person and these are budget people. Okay, you know it's going to come up. Prepare for it. Set yourself in the right mindset to know I've got this. And treat it as overprotection, not truth. Remember, your inner critic is trying to protect you. At least that's what it tells you that it's trying to do, right? It's trying to protect you. But acknowledge it. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I got this. I'm a big girl. I can handle it. So thank you, right? The goal isn't silence, it's proportion. It's a healthy mind doesn't eliminate the inner critic. It keeps it in its proper role as a source of input and not the final authority. So let's talk about daily practices that we can put into place to keep you in a place of well-being, right? A place where you are able to care for yourself, invest in yourself, and start to silence this inner critic, or at least quiet it down a bit. Journaling is really helpful if you like journaling. I'm not a journaler, but I consider my conversations with my friends as like journaling verbally of like, hey, I'm just like processing through this. Help me process through this. So journaling is really helpful. Again, your inner critic doesn't like to be processed through. It doesn't like structure. It just operates so well in this chaos that is your head that it's like as soon as you start to figure things out, it's like, oh, okay, now she's figuring out why I exist and that I'm not real, that I'm not truth. I'm just a thought. Practicing self-compassion. This is really important. This fosters resilience and a positive mindset. Celebrating small wins, like the person had here, a happy file. That's your brag bank. And having a supportive environment that is processes like journaling, that could be meditation, that could be if you're religious, whether going to your religious organization, it could be your friends, it could be having a supportive home environment. Right. I don't, if any of you have pets, we were, Caitlin and Lauren and I were talking about pets. The wonderful thing about pets is they absolutely love you. So if you feel like you're like, oh, I've had a rough day, go to a pet. Go to a shelter if you don't have a pet. Go to a friend's house who has a pet. You'll see how worthy of love you are when you go see it, when you look at yourself through the eyes of a pet. So think about that. All right, we have our next poll question. Which tool do you think would be helpful? So this is labeling it, questioning it, reframing it, or being mindful of it. So mindfulness I'm using in this sense of like being mindful of what it is, allowing it to happen, the thought process of the inner critic coming out, but then saying like, thank you, but no.
They must be good tools. People are answering very quickly. They're thinking about it. Somebody says my kitty is better than Xanax.
Oh, it is.
True.
Your animals are fantastic. Like whenever I kind of get down on myself, like I have a basset hound who, God, he's special. He's my special little boy. I could walk out to take the trash. I live in an apartment. I take the trash out and I come back in and it's like I've been gone for days. Oh my God, you're home. Oh my God. Like it was like, wow, thank you. Thank you for loving me so much that for the 5 seconds I was taking the trash out, your life was over. Like you were just like, I can't move forward, Mom. I can't. So yeah. And I think that what not only does mindfulness have is helpful in the sense of being compassionate about how you are listening to and processing through your inner critic. Your inner critic is based in the past, right? It's the voices of the people in your past. Some now could be potentially who are in the present with you. But a lot of it comes from the past. And it starts to build this foundation of you thinking that you're not whatever, not enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not talented enough, whatever that is for you, whatever that inner critic dialogue is telling you. It's all in the past. Mindfulness helps us live in the present. I am who I am today because of my past. Thank you very much, past. But I don't live there. I don't live there. I live right here. And I get to decide who and where I want to be moving forward. My past doesn't get to choose that. I get to choose that moving forward. So that's why mindfulness is, I think it's a term that's often overused, but mindfulness is just that. It's living in the moment right now and processing the moment right now. I'm not thinking about the past. That's where a lot of like depression can come from, of just ruminating and overthinking and anxiety, worrying about the future. Live in the right now. So let's talk about the benefits. So silencing your inner critic is not something that will happen all at once. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen with practice. There are many benefits to silencing your inner critic. And it's to realizing first and foremost, it's not serving you. It is not serving you. So silencing your inner critic fosters greater confidence, empowering you to pursue goals without self-doubt, and it leads to clearer decisions. I think somebody, I saw it on one of the chats that were coming through, that being almost paralyzed by decision making. When you start to silence that inner critic and trust yourself, yourself, you'll be clear in your decisions. You'll have enhanced creativity and personal growth, and you're going to feel calm. You're not going to feel that anxiousness that you felt before because you're not letting that baggage and those voices from the past dictate you in the present and in the future. Okay. Trying to go to the next slide. The one thing, this is the final slide, and I just want you to remember that the most important person you can be is you. There is no one like you, and there is no one better to play that role than you. You are not defined by your inner critic. Remember, they're the voices of the people in your past. It's not your voice. It masks itself as your voice, but it's not yours. And they may have been placed there from a place of care. We're not going to say it was completely malicious all of the time. It could have been there by a place of care, or it could have just been ignorance. But you are the writer of your story. You get to say where you go and how you get there and why it matters to you, and nobody else gets to decide that. Use times of self-reflection to keep your inner critic in check. Use self-reflection as a time to ask yourself if you are continuing to show up as the person you were meant to be. And most important of all, the key to happiness is self-acceptance. Accept who you are, bruises, blemishes, and all, and you are where you are supposed to be. I know that doubt comes in and you're thinking, I don't deserve to be here. I don't know if I should be. No, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're learning exactly what you're meant to be learning to take yourself to where you're meant to go, wherever that is. And that's for you to choose. So we covered a lot. I'm now ready for some questions, discussion. If anybody has any questions, do you feel that this was helpful? I know sometimes people think like, just tell me how to silence my inner critic. Just tell me how to shut her up. But it's important to understand why and where it comes from and when it shows up. All of that kind of pre-work ahead of time so you can recognize the patterns to start to understand where it's coming from so that you can address it. The hard part's the work up front. No questions?
There are comments, and there's one question that I think the person has actually left the session, but it's still a good question, which is it an inner critic if what you think becomes reality?
Yes. Yes. I had to think about that, but yes. Just because you're what we believe, we will become. And so that's why your thoughts, how you see yourself, and that's why your thoughts are important. And I think that's why we listen, like at times we often listen to our inner critic because it's this idea that this is my voice and this is what I'm telling, like this is my thought process and what I think I become or what I believe I become. Um, but we have to understand that the inner critic is not ours. It's not our thoughts on ourselves. So it's like you look at people who are successful, whether they be in your friend group, they be famous people, whoever you deem successful people to be. And it is the thought process that they had and have that make them successful. It's not ignorance or arrogance of like, oh, I'm just going to be a superstar. It's going to be fantastic. It's when I was faced with doubt, I persevered. When I faced struggle, I was resilient. I knew that I was meant for something bigger, or I knew that I was meant to do this. And they didn't allow the naysayers, which later become our inner critic, which later becomes like the voice of we become our own voice of our inner critic, that really start to pull us down. And it's recognizing that our thoughts are extremely important. And why do we want to waste our thoughts on something that isn't true, which is that inner critic, right? It's trying to be overprotective. Or you may be, if your inner critic is the voice, like I'll give you an example, like my mother. My mother was very risk averse. Play it safe, be small, help others, but don't make yourself big in trying to help others. Okay. And because she was risk averse, it was very much like stay where it's safe. Don't do that. And I thought, well, maybe that was for her, but that's not for me. And she did have a life that was very small and safe. But that was what she wanted. Like that's the life that she had. And that's not the life I wanted. So I think that it's recognizing, is your voice your own? Or does it belong to someone else? I think that's the hardest part, is starting to tear away this inner voice that you're having. Let's not even call it a critic at the moment, but this internal dialogue that you're having. Is it truly yours, or was it placed there by somebody else? And
Another
starting to separate that and pull those apart to then say, okay, I think it's me. Okay. So if this is you saying these things, where is that coming from? Do you believe it? Is it true? What facts do you have to back that up?
There's another question here that I'm interested in hearing your response to. In your experience and knowledge of the inner critic, is there difference between the inner critic of a neurotypical person and the inner critic of a non-neurotypical or non-neuronormative person?
That I don't know. I apologize that I don't know the answer for that, but I would be interested in the response of that. I think from what I've just seen in the chats coming through of people, what their inner critic says, it seems like a lot of people, I don't know where they fall in either one of those categories, but I a lot of us suffer from the same thoughts. I'm just not enough. Or, maybe I'm different. I mentioned this in the beginning that I know I think a lot of people probably think that I'm weird. And it's just like, okay, like, but I think we all have our own hiccups or our own like bruises and blemishes we're trying to hide. And that becomes like a filler for our internal voice and our inner critic. So I don't know. I don't know if their inner critic is different. And I don't know if there's been any research that's been done on that. I'll have to look that up.
It would be really interesting to have research on that. The person followed up with saying that self-reflexivity is not the same, doesn't always function the same way in
Yeah.
non-neurotypical people. So someone
Yeah,
has also
it sounds
asked,
more like the combating the inner critic may be very different, where the critic may be saying similar things, but how they go about combating it and overcoming it is different.
someone also asked if you've got any journaling prompts for getting started.
There is a great book called The Shadow Workbook, and I can look that up. But it's a shadow workbook, and it really goes into a lot about who you are as a person and what has made you the person you are today. And there's a lot of good journal prompts in there um, that build on each other, that are really insightful about um, when have I felt the most seen and heard? When have I felt very small? What was I doing? Who was present? Who wasn't present? Those types of questions that kind of they give you questions that really go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're like, oh. So yes, it's a shadow workbook. I have my phone here. Let me see if I can. If you have another question, I can look up that. But shadow workbook.
And another question here that someone asked anonymously is, I'm curious if men suffer from imposter syndrome. It's true that in the questions, most of the names seem to be women's names, but not exclusively. So I think it's not everyone, but what do you find in terms of the gender breakdown there?
I am not a man, so I can't speak for men, but men think differently than women, generally. Well, let's take a job, applying for a job, for example. Men typically will apply for a job, even if they're not qualified, because they believe that they can learn the skills to do the job. Right? They don't think, very rarely do men look at a job and be like, I don't know if I can do that or not, but I'll try it. Right? They're less risk adverse. I'm not saying that they're arrogant or that what I'm saying that they're less risk averse. Like, sure, I'll try it. What's the worst that could happen? Where women, when they often apply for jobs, will only do so not only when they are qualified, but when they're almost overqualified. And I give that as an example because that may give you some insight into just my experience in helping people through like career transitions and other things like that. That do men have doubt? Yes. And we all have doubt. And do we have inner critics? Absolutely. But I don't know, not being a man, I don't know how often they listen to it. They may see it as a challenge, right? Oh, you said I can't do it? I'm going to do it. Right? Where with women, we just think a little bit differently. We kind of like to ruminate. We tend, I think, just by nature to be less risk averse. We are very cautious. We are planners. We like to make sure that we have thought through every scenario possible before we move forward.
Do you
And
want
that,
to ask? Do you want to ask a fourth poll while we're answering some more questions?
sure.
Just to give them time to answer.
Yeah. How
Okay.
confident do you feel responding to your inner critic now? Now that you've had this presentation, do you feel that you would be able to at least respond in one way or another to your inner critic?
And here's a question while people are answering. How do I tell the difference between constructive self-reflection and self-criticism?
Hmm. Constructive feedback is meant to improve, and your inner critic is meant to make you small and safe. So it's one thing to say like, okay, I have failed at this or I messed this up. What can I do better to be better? Versus you're a failure. You always mess things up. You're never going to get this right. That's The language is different and the intention of it is different. Does that make sense? So it's being able, the one thing that we don't like doing a lot of the time is being by ourselves because there's a lot of action going on in here. And some can be very uncomfortable. Okay, good. Motivated to practice. Hey. So I think it's just really important to listen to it and say, okay, is that a thought or is it feedback that I should take? And I think too, something to look at, um, I'm not one that meditates, but I was listening to someone going through a guided meditation. And I'm just telling you, I don't meditate, so just full disclosure. That they described thoughts in your head like signs on a highway. So you're driving down 95 or any highway that's near you, and you see these signs of gas 5 miles, Taco Bell next exit, right? You see these signs. That's all thoughts are. They're just passing signs that are going through your brain. But if you start to see signs that are repetitive, you may want to start asking some questions, or things that may look like hazard signs, or things that look like warning signs. Looking at that as opposed to like, oh, there's a difference between Taco Bell and like road closed. So it's paying attention to what it's saying and really deconstructing it and saying, like, why does the same thought keep coming into my head? Why does this keep happening? Or again, as I mentioned before, like recognizing the patterns of when is it that the inner critic comes out the loudest? Like for me, I'm not somebody math is not my strong suit. So when I was in meetings where we were talking about budgets and finance, my inner critic was on high alert. You don't belong in these meetings. You don't even know what they're talking about. Right? You know how to deal with money, but not like this type of money. Right? So yeah, somebody mentioned when the terrible manager is around. Yeah. Right? Like you notice when you're starting to have that self-doubt and you're thinking, I was fine up until this scenario happened, or I was feeling good about myself until this happened. Recognize that and say, okay, what is this bringing out in me? Who am I showing up as when I'm in that situation? You need to figure out what it is that's starting to register that inner critic. And I have the shadow workbook. It's called the Shadow Work Journal. Um, and it's written by Keela Shahan, Shaheen. And that shadow journal has a lot of good, deep prompts about really great prompts regarding figuring out how you got to who you are today. So sometimes it's if it's hard for you to come up with, like you say, like journal prompts or even like internal thought prompts, that is a good book that'll get you there.
I hate to interrupt. I would like to keep talking about this all day, but unfortunately, this is all the time we have. Carolyn, thank you so much. I think everybody got a lot out of it. I know I will. I am going to have to try these out. So I want to send a special thank you to our Next Gen Alliance partners, WEPA and Code for America. We couldn't put on the summit without them, so thanks to them for all so much. But don't go just yet. There are a few quick reminders before we log off this session. Don't forget to fill out your CPE evaluation to get your credit. If you haven't already, head over to the exhibit hall to check out the amazing booths and check out the resources tabs and the resource center in the lobby. Up next, our closing keynotes will start at 3 p.m. Eastern, and you can access them from the sessions tab in the main environment. And we'll see you there. Thank you so much for joining.